Hey, thanks for stopping by. Today, I want to talk about some changes coming to contest mode raids. And if you're living under a rock, this is because Crota's End, a raid from Destiny 1, will be returning next week. Friday, to be precise. Bungie detailed some changes coming, which are going to have some pretty hefty ramifications for the day 1 raid race. And they're going to be especially impactful for those of us that are just looking to get the fancy new emblem by completing the raid and challenge mode without worry of getting the world's first and the belt. So before I get into the changes, let's talk basics. And for your viewing pleasure, there are chapters below if you want to skip to any piece of information. So first up, a quick rundown of contest mode. Essentially, it caps our light similar to Master and Grandmaster content, which you're likely familiar with. Specifically, for this raid, our light will be capped 20 under the final boss encounter. So, if you're planning on going to the raid, you just need to be 1790 light, because any more than that, it doesn't matter. And that's it. That's contest mode. So, with that covered, let's talk about some special cases regarding the raid race for Crota's End. Since this raid isn't actually new, simply completing the raid during contest mode isn't enough. There will be alterations to the mechanics, so anyone that's played the old Crota's End can't just breeze through it, but it is largely the same. And because this is the case, to snag the world's first belt, or the rare emblem, you need to beat the raid once, and then run through the entire thing again, but also complete every encounter's challenge. Once the challenge mode is completed, you have claimed victory over contest mode Crota's End, and will be the owner of a shiny new emblem, and for one team, a raid belt. So now that we are all caught up on how the raid race is going to work, let's talk changes. As a quick little summary, the changes are going to affect enemy AI, health, and the big one, DPS. Now as for this section talking about changes, it's going to be split a little bit with more general stuff first, and then I'll talk the sweaty stuff like optimal DPS strats later. Again, chapters below. So, starting with the changes themselves, there isn't a whole lot, but man, they have some big implications. So these changes are coming from the most recent, This Week in Bungie, and they read, they're increasing the cap of player outgoing damage for some combatants, but not increasing the incoming damage cap. Some enemies will gain elemental shields, and all enemies will be more aggressive than in the previous contest mode. So, starting with the simple stuff, some enemies are getting shields. Luckily, since our last raid, match game has been removed, so all this should really boil down to is that depending on the shield element, they might get a little harder to kill. But only if you don't have the element. If you do have the element, they'll actually be a bit easier to kill. Meaning, depending on what shields actually do show up, slight loadout changes might be the play. Then we've got AI enemies being more aggressive. This is a little odd for a change, to be honest, but I imagine it will be on a similar level to Grandmaster Nightfalls and the enemies within those. I don't imagine the enemies will actually be aggressive and do things like pushing you behind cover, but instead I think it'll change like their accuracy and ability cooldowns for stuff like grenades. So expect those acolytes and knights to be spamming their special abilities. With these changes to enemies, I don't think the raid is going to get too much harder than what's normal for a contest mode raid, but what's really going to throw a wrench in things is that change to outgoing damage. According to Bungie again, they increased the cap of player outgoing damage versus combatants. Keep in mind that the incoming damage cap did not change. So, we won't be taking more damage luckily, but DPS checks and bosses could get much harder. An important thing to note is that in previous contest modes, we deal 0.54% of our damage, or a little simpler, we deal 46% less damage. This is the same amount of outgoing damage reduction as the legendary campaign. So, even if you haven't done contest mode, you've likely experienced this. But since the cap on our damage is increasing, we are going to be doing even less damage. They don't tell us exactly how much, but we can make some guesses. and these guesses can be based on how Grandmaster Nightfalls work. GMs have a penalty of 53%, so you'll be doing 53% less damage than what's normal. And that is the highest penalty in the game. So unless they're introducing a totally new level of difficulty, I would wager 53% is the new penalty, or honestly maybe slightly less. But with that number, from our last contest mode raid to this one, we will be doing 6% less damage. And that is quite a bit. So that's pretty much the end of the basic stuff, but now I'm going to quickly talk strategies to mitigate this DPS nerf to us. This part of the video is where existing knowledge is helpful, so if you do get confused, go watch videos from Aegis, because, well, he'll catch you up to speed. Anyways, with the nerf/patch to Galley that came this season, rockets are no longer a one-size-fits-all option. Rockets will definitely not have the total damage or reserves to carry this raid. And with that in mind, DPS rotations will be absolutely imperative. Stuff like Izanagi rocket swap. Anything that allows you to have multiple high damage weapons so that you can extend your damage time, increase your total damage, all while not losing DPS. Also, on top of that, having an Aeon or a Cenotaph mask will be 100% necessary. Granted, for most raid teams, this is already the case in previous day ones. So, for those of us that are uncomfortable with DPS rotations and having quick weapon swaps during damage, well, it's time to practice. And for anyone looking for the true optimal DPS, go check out Aegis' DPS spreadsheet. Literally, anything you could want to know, it's there. This is what it looks like, and Aegis has a video going over it on his channel, linked in the top right. And with just a quick look at it, you can see, looking at the total damage column, you're going to want things like Izanagi Sniper Apex that allows you to have over 4 million total damage. So you're definitely not going to want to shy away from running double special either. So yeah, that's the changes coming to contest mode. I'm really interested to see how this is going to change difficulty going into next Friday, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts down below, especially if maybe there's something that I missed regarding how this raid could be even harder. If you'd like to support me and support this channel, a like, a comment, a subscription is, as you know it, greatly appreciated. But if you'd like to support me and you can't think of a comment down below, Crota. Also, thank you guys for the recent support. It's been awesome. And with that, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope to see you around.